it was the worst year for a lot of us for our mental as well as physical health. So joining us this morning is best-selling author, coach, and fitness expert Lisa Goldenthal.
Thanks for coming to the Power Up Your Pivot 100th podcast series. Get ready to feel unstoppable, energized, resilient, unshakable, and unbreakable. Live your best life. We've all been knocked to our knees. Learn how to bounce back better, body, mind, and soul. Overcome the COVID curves and anxiety and live your best life so that you can be unstoppable, resilient, and have more energy. Set yourself up for the win. Once referred to as the Larry King of podcasting, a Wall Street lawyer turned interview talk show host, communications and social dynamics expert, he's hosted a top 50 iTunes podcast for over 14 years before podcasting was even a thing, receives over 11 million downloads per month, making the Jordan Harbinger Show one of the most popular podcasts in the world, deconstructing the playbooks of some of the most successful people on earth, shares their strategies, perspectives, and practical insights with the rest of us. Welcome, Jordan Harbinger.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
I'm so excited to have you here with our audience. I know that you are an expert in so many things, but let's jump right in with building a network, because I was researching you and I decided I could be a lot better at that.
Yeah, I mean, that happens. Yeah, where do you want to begin? It is a huge topic, and I know we have sort of limited time, so I'll let you drive since it's your show.
Oh, well, I really was watching one of your podcasts, and I was watching a presentation of you speaking when you actually talk about rebuilding a podcast. I mean, not a podcast, rather a network.
A network, yeah.
So why don't we dive in with rebuilding a network?
Sure. So anything specific you want to know about, or just general rebuilding a network?
Well, I just really love your story. I love the story that you told about how you were working as a Wall Street lawyer and you learned about networking from the most successful person who seemed like he was never in the office.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So when I used to work
there.
Sure. Okay. So I used to work on Wall Street as an attorney, and there is a partner in there named Dave, and he was never in the office. And it was just kind of comical because at the law firm, they assigned us these mentors, and these mentors are supposed to mentor us, obviously, but they don't really know what to do. There's no real guidelines, just kind of corporate nonsense that they're our mentor. And I had never even seen him. Other mentees had gone out to lunch at least and things like that, and I never really had any attention. So HR was asking me about this, and I was like, I haven't really seen my mentor. So they sort of made him take me out for coffee in the basement of our office building. And it was really just kind of this eye-opening conversation about how he was the youngest partner at the firm, or one of. He was also one of the highest paid partners at the firm. And I thought, okay, like, how are you managing to do this? Is it because you work extra hard? Why aren't you in the office? Are you working from home? And I was asking him all these kind of questions. He was a little confused because he thought I would ask him questions about finance or something. But he really did open my eyes, because he started talking about how he worked outside the office, but he wasn't just billing hours. He was generating business for our law firm. And the way that he did that was by hanging out with investment bankers. So our clients at the time, he'd play racquetball or he'd run or he'd bike with these guys. And I didn't understand how that generated business. And he's like, well, you make friends with people and you keep in touch with your old friends, and then those people eventually give you business for your firm. And I thought, like, wait, that's how people find us? That seems really easy, or really simple, but also really difficult at the same time. Like, it's simple. People hire their friends. That can't be it. And he's like, that's literally it. He's like, keep in touch with everybody. Just, be cool with everybody that you meet. And I thought, like, that's not really good advice, because if I could just be cool, I probably wouldn't be like have gone to law school. If I could just be cool, I'd be in Hollywood, be in movies or something. So I decided that he didn't have any actionable advice, but he did know what he was talking about in practice, obviously. And so that got me thinking, all right, I need to learn networking and relationship development from first principles. Because apparently it really is about people know, like, and trust you. You know, that's the idea, is getting people to know, like, and trust you. And so I started studying psychology and verbal and nonverbal communication and persuasion and all these things. And it really started to dawn on me that that's the stuff that I was studying was what natural salespeople were really good at. It's what natural networkers are really good at, but most people never really figure this stuff out because they don't know how and they don't know where to start. And they also don't see the consequences most of the time until later on in their career. You know, you'll be like a 5th, 6th, 7th year associate or a manager somewhere, and you only start to realize that you need to network when you get fired, when you get laid off, or when the guy you hired 4 years ago is your boss now, and you're like, wait, what happened? I hired you. You know,
Right.
how are you in charge of a project that I'm working on? You know, what happened? Usually people get those consequences late. I had sort of accidentally stumbled upon the idea early in my career, and so I decided to build my career around those ideas.
Well, thank you for that. I was listening to your speech at Google and I was like, I'm taking this advice right now. I feel like it's been a pandemic. I decided that I'm an introvert and I haven't reached out to people. So I started scrolling to the bottom of my feed and my texts and reaching out to friends. And I ended up, just because I was going to talk to you, going for a walk with a friend of mine who I haven't spoken to since December. So can you expand upon that theory for our audience a little
Yeah,
bit?
the drill. So one of many drills that I have in I have a free course. I don't charge for anything. I just do it for free because a lot of people who listen are like you, who want to just kind of crack open their network again, or they're in college, or they're in a job. I don't really need to charge for it. The Jordan Harbinger Show, we sell plenty of mattresses and have those advertisements like every other show, so I don't have to worry about the course money. But one of the things that I recommend is every day, open up the text messaging app on your phone, scroll all the way to the bottom of the list of texts. And that's where all these sort of people you haven't talked to in like 5 years are, right? Because it does sort by most recent in iMessage or WhatsApp. So if you if you go all the way down to the bottom, you find these people that you haven't spoken with in forever. And sometimes it's because it's like, oh, this is the guy that like I thought was a good friend and vandalized my potted plants and robbed me, whatever, right? So you avoid those people. But other folks, you say, oh yeah, I haven't talked to my college roommate since its wedding. Let me just go ahead and send him a message. And I've got scripts in the course for what to say and how to say it. And when you do this every day with 1 or 2 people, you start to re-engage people that would otherwise kind of be lost to you.
I love that.
And you start to rebuild those relationships. And like you said, you went for a walk with somebody you haven't seen in forever. And it can be great for everything from dating to contacting old friends to keeping in touch with your family. Like, I still do this drill every day, and I'll go, oh my gosh, there's my cousin. I haven't talked with her for like 2 years because I missed her at the Christmas party. And then I'll send her a text, and she's like, oh yeah, how are you? I've been meaning to call you. But of course, that never really happens. So this is almost like a built-in system, right? As people go a long time without being contacted, there they are at the bottom of the list. And you can do the same thing with your email. If you want to type in a few letters, you open a compose window, type in a few letters of email addresses or names, and people pop up. You can just type the letter A, and who pops up? Someone named Adam that you haven't talked to in a really long time. Oh my gosh, send him a quick email to follow up. And I'll do that like 3 or 4 times a day. And I really keep in touch with probably hundreds, if not thousands of people. And a lot of times those relationships end up going deeper. To be fair, a lot of them, nothing ever happens. Fine, who cares?
Right.
It's a numbers game. Sometimes I get speaking gigs or the invitation to give a talk at Google, like the one you saw, invitations to go on podcasts or opportunities to give a talk or something else that's interesting. And so a lot of that comes from people finding me, or me finding them, I should say, through these systems after months or years of no contact. And so it's really, really great, especially for people who own their own business or are in sales or something along those lines. But it's really great for everyone because there's a lot of gold. People say, I don't know anyone, I can't network. And the truth is that you do know a lot of people, you just aren't thinking of them right now because there's no reason you'd think of your college roommate's friend that you actually hung out with a lot, but it was 15 years ago or 20 years ago. Why would that person be on your mind? You forgot they exist. So this is really useful for those sort of digital, it's like looking through your attic, but it's digital, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to be taking this advice. I hope you guys are listening because this is pure gold. Because you're saying there's a way to systematize and organize your outreach. Is there any other systems that you want to talk about since you're a
Oh man.
system guy?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you can use a CRM if you have one at work. So like one of those sales systems that's really sort of complicated. There's a free one at connectionfox.com. It's
Cool.
connectionfox.com. Yeah, I think you can put in like a few dozen for free, and that's enough for most people. Just put in a handful and say like, oh, this is really working, and then you sort of add more. You don't have to like add hundreds of people or anything. Another thing that I do is I use social media almost like a CRM system where if I'm on Facebook, which I don't use anymore, but let's say I'm on Instagram, I might see somebody pop up and it's like they had a baby. And instead of clicking like or putting a comment in there, I will text that person if I have their phone number. And that cuts through the clutter a lot better than typing a comment, which they won't notice, hitting the like button, which they won't notice. Sometimes even sending an email can get lost in it. But if you send them a text, only a few dozen or a few hundred people actually have their number. So Instagram or Facebook knows what's important in their life and sort of bubbles that up to the top of the news feed using the algorithm and the power of the algorithm. So you see the important events in people's lives. And instead of just passively consuming that, you're actively replying and engaging on that. And that's better. Like a lot of times I'll say, someone will say, what's going on with you? And I'll say, oh, I got a new baby on the way. They'll go, yeah, I saw that on Instagram. And I'm like, okay, I get why you didn't say anything, but this is a perfect example. That person saw the, ultrasound photo that I posted on Instagram. They should have, in theory, texted, sent a message. That's better engagement. I'm not saying you have to do this with everyone, but it's better engagement than somebody clicking like or putting an emoji in the comment section, which I'm never going to see or remember. So you have to be able to use these tools, and they're really easy to use to sort of cut through the noise, because that's how you start to deepen and build a relationship. If you have someone's phone number, you shouldn't be putting emoji comments in their photos. Engage with them at a more personal level. It really is. It's more intimate. It's better that way. Text messages, they're read something like 100% of the time. Very few people send them from an internet post. You really do cut through the noise, and it sets you on it puts you in a different circle than people who are just making comments or sending, messages or some sort of emoji in the comments or clicking the like button. You're in a different circle that says we're friends, and that's important. That's an important distinction.
I love this. This is gold, pure gold advice, you guys. I noticed that one of my connections on LinkedIn, it was his birthday and I was commenting on his post, but then it gave me the option to also send him a message. And I think our world has become so impersonal, and we've all been like cocooned away, and there's so much wonderful stuff that's come of the pandemic. But now more than ever, you should take Jordan's advice, reach out to your network, and don't just put an emoji on there having a baby.
Exactly.
Congratulations, by the way. And
thank you.
Since we have the networking king here with us, any other wisdom bombs you want to drop on our audience about strengthening our network, creating connections?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the most important thing the biggest mistake I should say people are making is you do have to dig the well before you get thirsty. And what this means is you need to build relationships before you need them. A lot of people listen and go, oh, I don't need to do this because I don't really need to network. I have a great job. I don't really need to do any of this. If you get laid off tomorrow, and we all know now the world's it's more uncertain now than it's ever probably been for many people in our lifetimes. This is, if somebody reaches out to me and I haven't heard from them in 3-5 years and they say, hey, do you know anyone who's hiring? I'm definitely not going to refer you to anyone because I don't know you anymore. Yeah. If I make an introduction, you could embarrass me. You could be a crazy person by now. You could be a bad performer. I don't know you. I can't vouch for you. I'm definitely not going to be able to help you. Even if I knew you really well years ago, I don't really know what you're like now unless we've kept in touch. But if somebody's sent me one message, we've had brief conversations every 6 months or even every year, I know now that you are the same person I knew before. Maybe I know what you're up to. Maybe I know a few things about your life. Then if you say, hey, Jordan, I'm reaching out to everybody. I got laid off yesterday. I'm trying to find new work. Now I know that you're the same guy I've been talking to for years. There's all this history there. If you don't dig the well before you get thirsty, a lot of times people will just not respond to you, and that's really frustrating. So I always know when somebody says, oh my God, I can't find a job. It's been really horrible. It's been really difficult for me. I'm sending messages to people and nobody's responding. I know right then that they have spent a lot of their free time ignoring their connections, not pruning the garden, not digging the well, so to speak, not investing in their relationships, because most people I know, almost, in fact, everybody I know that does this well, they get laid off and they find another, sometimes even a better job within days or weeks at the most, because their network is very, very primed to help them, and it's very, very healthy. So it's very rare to see somebody succeed without other people around them, but you have to build relationships before you need them. And the reason the systems are important is because, of course, if I'm in a really great place in life, I'm not thinking, what can I do to help other people around me and what can they do for me? I'm just enjoying my success. That's why I need systems, because people who aren't in front of me, especially during a pandemic, they're out of sight, out of mind. I'm not thinking like, oh, okay, I better keep in touch with my college roommate. Well, why would I do that? So I need the systems. When I looked at Facebook today, there he was having posted something about, I don't even remember, music or something. And I was like, oh, hey, man, what's going on? It's been a few months. What's up? What's the latest with you? Still trapped at home. And he sent me a message back, and we kind of keep it going. I do this all the time. I need the systems, even though people go, oh, you're so good at this. Why do you need the systems? The systems are what make you really good at it. And as you work these systems over time, you start to get the idea that anything that reminds you of somebody is worth an outreach. Like, I might even drive by a business and the business has the same the business is like so-and-so's shoes. And I'm like, oh, hey, man, I just saw this store with your last name and I thought of you. What's going on? Are you still in New York? No, man, we moved to Austin 3 months ago. It's great. You should come visit. That's the type of outreach. I'm not talking about like sending a long letter about what's up in your life and then meeting for lunch 3 times a month. You don't have to do any of that. That's an excuse that a lot of people have. They go, I don't have time to be doing coffee meetings. No one's going to ask you for this. And if they are, you can tell them you don't have time, but you're glad to be able to keep in touch. Like, people are sort of using this as they're sort of overly paranoid. Like, it's going to take up all my time. No, it isn't. Don't flatter yourself. Not everybody wants to hang out with you. They have their own lives. And two, even if they did, that's a high quality problem. I'm more inclined to think that that's an excuse people make, because they're like, oh, if I don't do anything to prompt my relationships, then I don't have to do these stupid coffee dates. And then I can just say, I don't have time. But it's really your own loss. Successful people are all great at this without exception. I don't know anybody who's really good at their job and also has a thin network and doesn't do a good job of keeping in touch with them. There are a few sort of eccentric types, but even those eccentric billionaire types, they have assistants that do this for them. So unless you have an assistant that's going to do it for you, and you're getting invited to all these high-profile events where networking is naturally happening, then you need these systems to do it. And it really doesn't make sense to ignore this, because people will make excuses all the time, but you're not really immune to the consequences of this if you don't do it. You're just being willfully ignorant of the secret game that's being played around you if you don't put this stuff into action. You'll still suffer, but it'll look like an invisible problem that you're having. How come so-and-so is always ahead of me? Why are all these other brown nosers getting the jobs and the projects that I want? That's what it'll look like to you. But the truth is, those people have probably just done a better job maintaining and creating their network. And so you are the odd man out. You have a disadvantage, and it looks like other people have an unfair advantage. But I'm encouraging you to make that your unfair advantage instead of just whining and complaining about it.
I love it that you touch upon this for the people that didn't go to Yale and maybe aren't members of like a secret society. And we all have a level playing field these days. And I started this podcast because I want to inspire our audience to be unstoppable. And since you're the connection king, the last question I really have for you is, how important is it, your network, in that who you surround yourself with?
Yeah, I mean, there's all this sort of conventional wisdom, like you only go as high as the closest friends or your 5 closest friends or whatever it is. Like, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. There's a million versions of these quotes. I mean, I believe that. I think there's something to that. I wouldn't overly focus on it. I know a lot of people that have taken that to kind of miserable levels where they don't hang out with their old friends at all anymore because they're constantly trying to sort of like social climb and be hanging out with these other guys and the cool kids and the rich people. And I think it's a recipe for emptiness. There's something to be said for the value of hanging out with your old video game buddy from high school. Maybe you don't hang out with them 7 days a week. Maybe you hang out with them once or twice a month. I don't believe really in cutting out people from your life that aren't negative, but just aren't, they're not making 200 grand a year, so we can't hang out anymore. I think it's kind of a crappy thing to do. And I think people who do that shortchange themselves. But I also think there's psychological damage to be done from hanging out with people that are not doing anything. I know a lot of people who are smart and have a lot of potential, and they hang out with their brother-in-law and their old friends, and all those guys do is smoke weed and play Xbox every day. And they're like, yeah, man, I got to lose weight and get to the gym and eat better. And I'm like, well, if the guys you're hanging out with 6 nights a week or 5 nights a week or whatever it is are eating donuts and pizza and playing Xbox and then sleeping in till 11 and not going to the gym because they stayed up till 4 a.m. playing video games, you are going to take some of those habits. And there's science that proves that you will have negative habits and positive habits, for that matter, rub off on you from the people that you're around. So you have to be careful with that. But I'm kind of a fan of not going so extreme in either direction. You know, you don't want to cut people out of your life for no good reason. But you also, yes, you should be trying to surround yourself with people that are going to the top, as long as those people share your values. You know, I think another way where people go wrong is they'll hang out with like these dumb influencers or mentors that they pay online. And I'm like, this person, 1, doesn't care about you. 2, is buying, I don't know, fake likes or whatever on their phone. You know, they're doing fake stuff and it looks like they're on top, but really they're just a kind of a shyster. I don't think you should hang out with those people at the expense of your actual social life, you know, just because they appear successful. So sometimes it depends. You know, I might hang out with somebody who's really fit. Or I might hang out with people with good taste in food when I want to go out and eat and get something good to eat. But I'm not necessarily only hanging out with wealthy people to the expense of, or to the detriment of other areas of my life, because I don't value money that highly. And so you have to be really careful, because some people will think, oh, this person's successful. Are they though? Or do they just have a lot of money? Right? There's a big difference. And so you really, there's a huge difference. And you really do need to sort of examine your own values and hang out with people who are doing well and also match those values, because otherwise you're going to end up absorbing somebody else's values. And after working on Wall Street, I've seen what happens when people who mean well are around rich people who only care about money for years at a time. It's bad for you. It creates misery.
Well, thank you for sharing all of your wisdom. And I know that you're a busy guy. I want to know, where can our audience download some of your stuff and check out all your stuff? Obviously, the podcast, where do you want to send them?
Sure. So the Jordan Harbinger Show is my podcast. I've had a lot of really amazing guests on, from Kobe Bryant to Ludacris to Ray Dalio to Mark Cuban. So I really do try to interview just amazing people at the top of their game and get them to tell us some amazing stories or tips we can apply to our own life. In the course that I was mentioning with some of those drills, there's 13 drills. I think we talked about one. The course, again, is free. I don't need your credit card or anything. jordanharbinger.com/course is where that's at. But look, I mention that every time on the Jordan Harbinger Show. So if people just find the Jordan Harbinger Show or go to jordanharbinger.com, they can find the podcast and they'll find the course. And I want to thank you for having me on. It's been a great opportunity. I'm glad we finally were able to do it. I know it's been a while. And I know that your computer wasn't cooperating earlier as well. So I'm glad we were finally able to make that happen.
Thank you for your flexibility with that, Jordan.
For sure. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for coming to the Power to Pivot 100th podcast launch. Whole CEO with Lisa G. After over 20 years helping people lose weight and get fit, I'm excited to announce I have found the missing link. Message me if you want to learn how to look better, feel better, and go faster with a master. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast and share it with your friends.